Hey everyone, Luke here from Bedford Camera and Video, and today we're going to do a deep dive into the new Sony ZV-1. This camera is a really great camera for a lot of different users because it has a capability of a vlogging aspect with the articulating screen, but it's also a really great pocket-sized camera that is fantastic for a lot of different uses. So we're going to do an unboxing so that you understand what you're getting with the camera, as well as the Vlogger kit that you can purchase with this camera as well. So the ZV-1 comes in two different ways as far as how you can purchase it. You can buy the camera by itself, or you can buy the Vlogger kit, which comes with a handle and a memory card. So we're going to break open this box and see what all you get with the camera itself. You've got all of your paperwork as far as your warranty paperwork at the very top. Okay. All right. So this is going to be a windshield for the microphone on top of the camera. You've got your USB cable, and that is going to be a USB type B. And then we've got your camera. Okay, boom. Let's check here. All right, so now I think the only thing left is going to be the battery. All right, so I'm going to get this all unboxed and unpackaged here. So when you first get the camera out of the box, most typically the battery isn't going to be fully charged. So if you're wanting to take this out of the box and go start shooting, you may want to give it a little bit of time for a charge. Usually the manufacturers across the board will send a battery with roughly about 30 to 50% charge. To insert the battery, we're just going to open the door here on the back side. Perfect. Place that there. And then to turn it on, you're going to open the screen. Now, before we get into the menus and setup on everything on the inside of the camera, I do want to kind of point out a few things with this camera itself as far as the buttons and layout, because it is slightly different than previous Sony cameras in this same kind of form factor. For example, there's a new mode dial that allows you to switch between your aperture priority, shutter priority, manual, auto, so on. But there's also a button here in the very top corner that is a defocus aspect. You can turn this on to help separate your subject from the background by creating more of a bokeh look. Now, this is going to have a Zeiss lens built into it, so it's not interchangeable, but it does have the capability of a 24 to 70 millimeter equivalent on a full frame sensor. On the top of the camera is the microphone, and you have a hot shoe here as well. It will come with a protector. You can keep that in your pocket when you're wanting to utilize this hot shoe, but it is a nice tool to kind of keep handy to make sure that everything stays nice and clean. Now, the windscreen is going to look just like the protector piece here. So it's going to slide right into that hot shoe. And what that's going to do is create a fuzzy windscreen that is going to help mitigate a lot of the wind noise or things of that nature when you're outdoors trying to shoot video. Now, apart from that, we'll take that off so that we can see everything. On the back side, you've got your function button, menu button, playback, trash can, and then a scroll wheel with a center selection. On the side here, we have a microphone input, the multi-use USB input, as well as an HDMI input. The HDMI is going to be a micro HDMI, and this will allow you to plug this up to your TV to view videos or photos through that, or like we're going to do here shortly, plug it up to a monitor so that we can view everything a little clearer and larger. Okay, you're going to have the shutter button here as well as your zoom, so you'll be able to go zooming in and out with this lever on the front of the camera. And the W is going to be for a wide, so when you're wanting to go for a wider shot, you'll move it there, and the T is for telephoto so that it'll zoom into the 70mm aspect. Now, this camera does have the capability of utilizing optical zoom, but as well as a digital zoom, so that you'll get more range, but what's happening is it's going to cut down the actual resolution of the image itself. It's basically cropping into the photo to get closer to the subject that you're wanting. Now, I'm going to go ahead and set this to the side, and we're going to open up the Vlogger Kit. So the Vlogger Kit is the second option as far as what you can purchase with the Sony ZV-1. This camera, or this Vlogger Kit, is going to have two different pieces of equipment inside of it. So let's open that up. Now, you'll notice that it has the camera grip pairing guide. What this is going to be a quick and easy step-by-step process of pairing the grip to the camera, because it is utilizing a Bluetooth connection. Okay, you can also scan the QR code for more information, but this gives you a good rundown of the buttons and things on the grip itself. So let's open this up here. All right. All right, perfect. Okay. So the Vlogger Kit for the Sony ZV-1 comes with two things, like I said, the handle and a memory card. You'll have a 64 gig memory card that'll allow you to shoot every bit of the 4K footage that this camera can facilitate, as well as all of the frames per second that this camera will do in photo mode as well. I'm going to set this memory card to the side and open up the grip. Okay. So inside you'll get your registration info as well as a few different manuals in different languages. Set that to the side for now. Okay, we're gonna unwrap what we've got here. All right, so here is the actual handle for the ZV-1. Like I said, this is Bluetooth, so it's going to have a built-in, or a battery that you're going to need to maintain, but it doesn't have any cables, which is really nice because of a feature that this grip will do that a lot of other handles don't. Now, on this bag, inside of here, I'll open this up, it does come with the battery that you're going to need to power this grip. Now, that being said, the battery, for everybody that may want to have an extra one in their bag, or just being prepared for when this battery dies, it's going to be the CR2032. You can get these from Bedford Camera, in store or online, and a lot of other retailers if needed. But this is going to be a great thing so that you don't have to run out and grab an extra battery or a battery with the grip from the get-go. It's also going to have a little felt bag that you can store everything in as far as your handle, so it keeps it nice and clean and protected when you throw it into your bag. So like I was saying, with the grip, it is a really nice feature that it is a wireless system, because it allows you to actually utilize this feature on the top where you screw on to the camera itself. You hold the button down and this will allow you to rotate 360 degrees. If you had a more traditional grip that had a connection through the multi-port, you're not going to be able to do that. You'll have to go one direction and then the other just because of the cable itself. You have a couple of different controls on the tilting aspect of this camera, or this grip as well. You have a friction knob on the side and you have a release button on the other. This will allow your camera to be angled in the desired position. Okay. Now, With this, you'll have a few different buttons on the front of the grip. You'll have a movie for record capability when utilizing the movie feature, but you'll also have a photo button, a zoom button, the C1, which is going to be a custom function button that will connect to your camera itself, and then a lock switch. So if you have this in your bag with the battery in it, and this is not switched to the lock position, it can drain the battery significantly faster by the buttons being pressed. Now, to utilize this and to insert the battery, we're going to open it up from the back side here. This is also, it will double as a tripod capability for a lot of vlogging aspects and just a simple to use small tripod. On the back side, there will be a door here, and there's a double action latch that you'll slide over this lever and then down with the next. Okay. Now, this is where you're going to insert this CR2032 into the grip. Okay. It's locked in, so now we're ready to utilize it. If you notice, there's a red blinking light on the front of this, letting you know that you have the power connected to the grip itself. Now let's move back to the camera and start going through the setup function of the camera itself. To turn on the camera, the simplest way is either to utilize the button on the top that says on off, or you can open the LCD screen. When you open the LCD screen, because it is an articulating screen, you have the ability to rotate it and push it back into the camera to compact everything down. When you first turn on the camera, you're going to get prompted with a language selection. You can have French, Italian, Spanish, and English. We're going to go with English, and you're going to set the time and date. So we're going to hit enter. I am currently in Central US, so we're going to click Chicago and Mexico City. I typically utilize daylight savings being on, considering we are in a state that recognizes daylight savings. We're going to go down to the time aspect and date and time, and I'm going to set my date and time here. And to get to the PM side of things, you're going to just scroll through the hours until you hit the PM side of it. Now that we have that taken care of, I'm going to hit OK, which is the center button on the back side of the camera. I'm utilizing this scroll wheel that is also a keypad or a directional pad so that you can go up, down, left, right, as well as the enter button in the center of it. Now you can select a date format. When you get to this screen, there is a QR code. That QR code can be scanned by your phone that will take you to a page on the Sony website, which will allow you access to download various apps for mobile devices or your desktop computer. This will give you a little bit more creativity and control for your camera itself. Now I'm going to hit OK and bypass that for now. So the most user-friendly mode for this camera is going to be the intelligent auto. When you first turn on the camera and start to get it set up, it will automatically be in that mode. You'll know this by the little eye and green camera in the left top hand corner. For those of you that may want to push past the intelligent auto mode, there are a variety of other mode settings that you can choose on the ZV-1. To change that mode setting, you're going to click the button on the top of the camera that says mode. This will prompt you to another screen that gives you a lot of different options. We have P for program auto, aperture priority, and the great thing about Sony in this camera is the fact that it's giving you a brief description of what each of these modes are actually doing. Shutter priority, for example, adjust shutter speed manually for different effects on moving subjects, faster speed to appear stopped momentarily, slower speed to capture traces of movement. So this is a great way to learn kind of the terminology for each one of these modes. And manual exposure, sweep panorama, scene selection. Scene selection is a really interesting mode because this allows you to kind of dial in an auto mode to a specific environment that you're shooting in, such as nightscapes, night portraits, night landscapes, or landscape, various forms of photography that are out there, but it is still 100% an auto mode. We'll go past that down to memory recall. If there are scenes that you're shooting in often and have settings specifically set for those scenes, you can save those and quickly reference them and utilize the exact same settings. The HFR mode stands for high frame rate. This is going to allow you to shoot slow motion video up to 960 frames a second. Underneath that is your movie mode and intelligent auto for your movie mode. And then we're back to intelligent auto for your photos. I'm gonna leave it here. Okay, and underneath that icon in the top left corner of your screen, you'll notice that white box. The white box is going to tell you what your drive setting is currently placed at on the camera. For example, this one singular white box means that it is a single photo drive, meaning when you take the photo, when you press the shutter button down, it will only take one photo every time you click the button. To adjust that into something else, you're going to utilize the wheel on the back of the camera, and you'll notice there's a small icon that has a variety of little boxes kind of stacked on top of each other. So if we click that, you'll notice that you can change your drive mode. So you have single shooting. When utilizing the continuous shooting mode, you have those three different options: low, medium, and high. This will determine how many photographs are being taken per second that you're holding the shutter down. Underneath that, you have a timer. This is going to be another another mode that has various different options. For example, you have 10-second delay, 5-second delay, 2-second delay. This will allow your camera to pause after you've pressed the shutter button down and gives you that amount of time before the photo is actually taken. Underneath the self-timer mode, you'll go down to the drive mode that says self-timer continuous. Now, what this means is it will give you a variety of different options that you can choose from: 2 seconds, 3 images, up to 10 seconds, 5 images. Now, what that means is your camera is going to pause that amount of time before it takes the photograph, just like the self-timer, but instead of taking 1 image at the end of that timer, it will take 3 or 5 images depending on which mode you select. A great example of this is if you needed to put this camera on a tripod and jump in front of the camera for a family photo that you may have a few different people moving around. This will give you a more likelihood of getting a proper shot in the end. Under that self-timer mode, you'll have a few different features that are currently grayed out because we are in the intelligent auto mode. These are going to be advanced features for bracketing, utilizing multiple exposures in a manual setting. That's a few of the different mode settings or drive mode settings that you can utilize with the Sony ZV-1. Underneath the drive mode icon, towards the middle left of the screen, you'll see AF-A. This stands for Autofocus Auto. Now, to change this, you're going to hit the FN button on the back of the screen. You're going to press the FN button on the back of the camera and go over to the focus mode icon, and you'll hit the center button. This will allow you to switch through a lot of the autofocus modes that are available with the ZV-1. For example, at the very top, you have AF-S, which stands for single shot autofocus. When you press the shutter button down halfway, it will autofocus for that one shot. You have automatic autofocus, which will allow the camera to automatically select the autofocus points for you. down to continuous autofocus for the AFC. So you can continually half press this camera. You can continually half press the shutter button to get a constant autofocus of a subject that is moving. Under the AFC icon, you'll have DMF, which stands for direct manual focus. This is to be looked at as a manual override for your autofocus system. So you can still utilize autofocus, but have the capability of fine-tuning that autofocus manually. Underneath that is MF, standing for manual focus. This is where you're going to manually focus every shot that you want to take. Okay, we'll go right up here, leave it at AFA for now. Underneath the AFA icon on the left side of your screen, you'll see a box with a few different brackets on the inside of it. You're going to get to this section utilizing the same FN button on the back of the camera. So we'll click that and we'll go over to focus area. When I select that, you'll have a few different options here. The first one that you'll see under focus area is wide. Now what this means is it's telling the camera where it can focus for your photograph or your video. For example, wide tracking will allow for the camera to utilize its autofocus points across almost the entire screen or the entirety of the sensor itself. Zone is going to be slightly more compact and specified to the subject matter that you're wanting to photograph. Underneath that is center. Center will allow you to focus on things that are directly in the middle of your shot. Underneath that is flexible spot. Now, flexible spot is a really cool feature because it allows you to move your autofocus point across the entirety of the screen. There are a few different options as far as the size of that box that is moving around your screen. So you have medium, large, and small. This will allow you to be a little bit more pinpoint if needed to get the fine-tuned autofocus that you're looking for utilizing the small flexible spot, or if it's a larger item that is in the vast majority of your frame, you may utilize the large function as well. Underneath here, you'll have expand flexible spot. When you're utilizing flexible spot, it's one single box, whether it's small, medium, or large, that you can move around the image to get your autofocus. With expand flexible spot, it allows for that one box, but then a few others that are surrounding the main box that allows for better tracking of a subject that is moving quickly. For example, if you're trying to photograph or film a runner that is bouncing up and down as they're moving across your image, that will allow for a little bit more leeway to get the focus the way you need it. Underneath expand flexible spot, you'll have tracking expand flexible spot. Now, this is going to be an autofocus mode that will continually track a subject. You can utilize the touchscreen functionality on the back of the camera, or you can utilize the directional pad on the back of the camera as well. This is going to be something that you have to utilize when you're not in an autofocus auto. You would utilize this in an autofocus continuous autofocus mode. Underneath the focus area icon, you're going to see a little stick figure with a box around it. For example, mine is saying AF on next to that. What that is face detect autofocus system. To adjust that, you're going to hit the menu button on the back of the camera, and you're going to go to the first page for camera 1 and go down to the sub pages. You're going to scroll over to page 5 and you'll see face/eye autofocus set. I'm going to hit my select button on that and it'll give you a few different options. Underneath the first one at the top of the list is going to be face, eye, priority, and autofocus. And you're going to say on if you would prefer it to be on or off. Okay. Underneath that is subject detection. What's really interesting about a lot of these newer cameras from Sony is that it has the capability of prioritizing human or animal. For example, you can select which one you're wanting to photograph. Underneath that, you have left or right eye selection. This is going to give a prominent focus on either the left or the right, depending on which one you select. You could also set this to auto so that it will try to capture the autofocus to the one closest to the camera. Underneath your eye selection, you'll have face eye frame display. What this means is you'll have a little box that tracks around the face and the eyes of your subject. You can turn that either on or off. You have that same capability with animal as well, right underneath. Now, to get out, we'll go ahead and hit menu a couple of times so that you have the main screen available. On the left side of your screen, underneath the face and eye detect autofocus icon, you'll see a little face with a star and a mid currently. This is going to be a feature that is put into the Sony ZV-1 that is skin softening effects. To adjust that, you're going to hit the FN button on the back of your camera and scroll over to the soft skin effect. Now to adjust that, you're going to hit the center enter button, and this will allow you to either turn it on or off, or you can change the amount of skin softening that you're wanting the camera to automatically do for your photos. This is a great way to do a pre-edit on your photos for portraits. At the top center of your screen, you'll see an icon that has a 3:2. That is going to be your aspect ratio for the images that you're taking. It'll be 3 across, 2 down. As well as next to that is a 20 with an M next to it. And that's going to be the amount of megapixels that you're utilizing from this camera. So for example, you're in a 3:2 ratio and a 20 megapixel image. On the right-hand side of that, you'll see the word fine. And what that is the image quality selection for your JPEG shots. Now, to change that, you're going to hit the menu and come all the way over to the first page on the first tab in your menu system. And you'll go to File Format. Here, you'll be able to select either JPEG, RAW plus JPEG, or RAW only. Utilizing a RAW format will allow for more flexibility in post when you're editing utilizing software such as Photoshop or Capture One. You can utilize the RAW plus JPEG to get an image that is shot on a RAW format and a JPEG format every time you take a photograph. I'm going to leave it on JPEG for now. And underneath that, though, you have JPEG quality. When you select that, there's 3 different options that you can choose from: standard, fine, and extra fine. If you want the highest quality JPEG that your camera can produce, make sure that you select the extra fine setting. Underneath that, you have JPEG image size. So where we saw that 20 with the letter M next to it for the 20 megapixels, you can select this setting and change the amount of megapixels that you're utilizing from your camera. For example, you have 20 megapixels, 10 megapixels, and 5 megapixels. I would suggest utilizing the largest capability to get the best quality out of your camera. So I'll leave it at the large setting for 20 megapixels. Underneath that, you'll see the aspect ratio that we talked about on the home screen. You can select this and choose from different aspect ratios depending on what type of photograph you may want to print. For example, if you want it to be a square image, you're going to utilize 1:1. If you're wanting a more cinematic look, like a 1920 by 1080 field of view for videos, you'll use 16:9, and 4:3 and 3:2. Those are 2 very standard photo aspect ratios for printing. I'm going to leave it on 3:2 since that is the standard. We'll come back to this main screen here. On the far top right, you'll see that you have a battery icon. That's going to give you a good understanding of how much charge you have left on your battery. If you notice, underneath the 20 megapixel icon and the X-Fine icon, you'll see a shaking hand and a camera or a video icon there. What that icon is saying is that the exposure is going to be very slow. So you're trying to take a photograph in a darker lit area, meaning that is going to activate the steady shot capabilities of your camera. To adjust that setting, we'll go ahead and hit the menu button on the back of the camera and go to the second tab to page 3. And at the very bottom, you'll see a line item for steady shot. If I select that, it gives you 3 different options: active, standard, and off. I will typically utilize active to give the most capability for your steady shot stabilization. At the bottom of your screen, you'll notice an icon next to C1. That icon is going to be the defocus capabilities of the ZV-1. This setting will allow your subject to be separated slightly more from the background by defocusing the background, creating a more bokeh-like image. At the very bottom of your screen, you'll see 3 different icons. A 1/4, which is your shutter speed. That is the shutter is going to be taking a photo at 1/4 of a second. Apart from that, in the middle, you have f1.8. That is the aperture reading of your camera's lens. This will allow for the maximum amount of light coming into the camera. And then apart from that, on the right-hand side, you'll see ISO auto. ISO is going to be considered artificial light that your camera can produce to get a shot in lower lit situations. So there's a few other features that I want to point out about the Sony ZV-1. One of those features being smile shutter. This is a really cool feature that allows your camera to be set up and take a photograph every time it recognizes someone smiling. To adjust that feature, we're going to utilize the menu button on the back of the camera, and we're going to go from tab 1 all the way over to the 12th page, and you'll see down here smile shutter. If I click that, I can go to smile shutter on. There's a few different options that you can choose from when you do turn this on. You have normal smile, big smile, and slight smile. What this is changing is the sensitivity of how quickly the camera is going to register to take the photograph depending on how large you're smiling. When you have this mode turned on, you'll notice on the left-hand side of your LCD screen, you'll see a vertical bar with a smile at the very top and an indicator on the right-hand side of how much smile it will take to actually take the photograph. So for example, on a slight smile, it's a little bit lower than what would be done on a big smile. For example, if I go here, you'll notice that the indicator is far higher up on that level. Another feature that is really cool about the Sony ZV-1 is the face registration feature. To access that, you're going to hit the menu button, and we're going to go from tab 1 all the way over to page 12, just above the smile shutter. Right here, you'll see registration face priority on, and then above that, face registration. What this is going to do is save the face that you register as a priority in your imagery. So for example, if you're going to photograph a wedding with this camera, you could take a photograph of the bride and groom beforehand and register those faces to set priority for those faces. So when you're taking a photograph of, let's say, a group of people with those 2 individuals in the shot, the focus will actually prioritize their faces apart from everyone else's. Another great feature about the face registration is the fact that once you actually register a face in the camera, you can filter through all of your photo library for those faces. So now I'm going to jump into some of the more video-centered features of the ZV-1. With this camera, to select the video mode on the camera, you're going to hit the mode button on the top of the camera. When you do that, you'll be able to select either intelligent auto for your video mode, or standard movie mode, or even the HFR for high frame rate, depending on what the settings are for your shot. I'm going to currently utilize the movie mode. Now, in movie mode, you have a few different options. You have program, aperture priority, shutter priority, and fully manual exposure. These modes will determine how the image is going to be exposed, whether you're utilizing a shutter priority to get the shutter speed the way you want it, the aperture priority to make sure that the aperture is exactly where you want it, or you can utilize full manual to control everything about the camera itself. If you're not up for that, you can utilize the program auto or the intelligent auto for your video functionality. I'm going to utilize program for now. And this will bring up a few other icons on your screen. You'll start to see a lot of the same icons that we've previously discussed for the photo mode, like your autofocus continuous, your flexible spot, and so on. But there are a few things that have changed, such as the CH1 with a bar next to it and CH2 with a bar next to it. What that stands for is channel 1, channel 2 for your stereo audio capabilities of the camera. You'll notice that there's green bars passing left to right as I talk, because the camera is actually recognizing my voice and is saying what and is indicating what the volume level is of my voice. That's a good way to monitor your audio so that you get great audio in post. You'll notice at the top of your screen, you'll see an icon that says XAVCS HD. This is just a representation of what video codec is currently selected for your camera. Apart from that, on the right-hand side of it, you'll see 60p. That's going to be the frames per second that your video is currently being shot in. So for example, right now, this camera is set to be shooting 60 frames a second. Next to that, on the right-hand side, you'll see a 50 inside of what looks like a film strip. And that's going to indicate the amount of megabits per second that the camera is going to be recording onto your card. On the right-hand side of your screen, you'll see the letters AWB. That stands for auto white balance. White balance is going to determine how warm or cool the picture looks. Underneath that is DRO, which is Dynamic Range Optimizer, and that's just going to allow your camera to get the best capable shot for your dynamic range. Underneath the DRO auto icon, you'll notice that there's another icon that says STD, standing for standard, with a variety of different numbers. Now, to adjust this, you'll hit menu, and you'll go to tab 1, page 9, and it's called your creative style. What this is going to do is give a different color profile for your video. For example, if I click that, you'll have vivid, portrait, landscape, sunset, black and white, sepia, and then standard. This will give just a variety of different looks and feels for your video. Underneath the profile for your color, you're going to see a paintbrush with a paint palette. That icon is representing the picture effect. Now, to adjust that, we're going to hit the menu button. On page 1, or on tab 1, page 9, you're going to go down to picture effect, and you can click that and go through a variety of different effects that are applied to your video, such as toy camera, pop color, posterization color, retro photo, soft high key, partial color red, high contrast, and a few others. You'll notice that there are a few icons here that are grayed out. Don't worry, you'll still be able to utilize those. Those are just features for other settings. Now that we're outside of the menu and the setup stage of the camera, we're going to talk about some of the more physical features of the camera itself, like the vari-angle LCD screen. This allows you to get a variety of different shots in tough to reach situations, such as a very low shot or high shot. But this will also allow for a self-viewing mode. You can rotate the vari-angle LCD screen to face you in front of the camera so that you can utilize for vlogging aspects or self-portraits and so on. This screen also has touchscreen capabilities for ease of use. A really nice feature about this type of vari-angle LCD screen is that when you're wanting to store the camera inside your bag or your pocket, this will allow for the screen to be protected. You can actually rotate and close the screen inside of the camera so that you're not actually affecting the screen itself. Like we discussed a little bit before, on the center point of this camera, you have a microphone. So this graded rectangle system is the microphone for the ZV-1. It has a 3-capsule design. This microphone system will actually determine what the ambient noise is around you and help isolate your vocals from in front of the camera so that you can get clear, crisp audio when you're vlogging or utilizing it to film someone else, even in a crowded situation. On the inside of the Sony ZV-1, it has an incredible sensor, a 1-inch CMOS sensor. This will allow for really great imagery even in those challenging low-lit situations. Next to the C1 icon, you'll notice that there's a C2 icon. The C2 icon is in reference to the product showcase settings. What this is a really great professional way to go about your product reviews. For those of you that are going to be utilizing this camera to review product for other companies, it's a great feature to utilize because when you pick up your product and show it to the actual camera, the ZV-1 will deprioritize your face, move the focus to the item that is in your hand, and then back to your face when you set it down. That gives you that zero frustration capability when utilizing that focus mode. When it comes to the still side of this camera, you get a 20.1 megapixel 1-inch sensor. And this sensor is incredible for low-lit, challenging situations while providing a high-resolution image for printing capabilities. It also has the functionality of time-lapse that you can choose between 1 second and 60-second delays between images and up to 9,999 photographs in one sequence. To access the controls for the interval shooting or the time-lapse shooting, we're going to hit the menu button on the back of the camera. We're going to utilize the first tab and go to page 3. We're going to go down to interval shooting function. This will allow you to set up the parameters for your time-lapse capabilities. For example, you can choose the amount of shots that you want up to 9,999 photos. The shooting start time will determine the delay of your time-lapse from the first time you press the shutter button. For example, right now it is set to a 1-second delay to start the time-lapse. Underneath that, you'll see shooting interval. This is going to be the amount of time lapsed between each photograph that is taken. Underneath that, the number of shots, up to 9,999 photographs. Down to AE tracking sensitivity. This is going to be an autofocus mode tracking sensitivity for your time-lapse. On the second page of this menu system, you'll see shutter type and interval. So this is going to be where you will choose between mechanical shutter and electronic shutter. Underneath that, you'll see shoot interval priority, and this is going to be a feature that you'll utilize in other modes, such as manual. Another great feature about the Sony ZV-1 is that it has a built-in ND filter. This will allow you to get properly exposed photos and video in camera. To select and utilize the ND filter, we're going to hit the menu button on the back of the camera, and we're going to go to the first tab and page 7. If you'll come down to ND filter, you can turn that on or to auto. This will allow a darkening effect to your imagery if you're trying to get a slower shutter speed in brighter situations. a good example for when to utilize the ND filter in the ZV-1 is a beach scene or a snow-covered sunny day, an environment that is very bright. If you purchase the Vlogger Kit with the Sony ZV-1, we'll go through the setup system of how to actually connect the Bluetooth grip to the camera. First, we're going to unpackage everything like we did, and then we're going to connect the camera to the top of the grip. To do that, you're going to utilize the 1/4-20 thread on the bottom of the camera and the top of the stand. We're going to do this and rotate the wheel until it's nice and tight and snug on the bottom of the camera. You can then rotate the camera 360 degrees by utilizing the button on the top of the head for the grip. I'm going to set up this as a tripod and tilt this back so that I can go through the menu setup for the camera and the grip itself. So to connect your ZV-1 to the grip, you need to do a few different things. First, we're going to hit the menu button on the back of the camera. We're going to go to the tab 3, which is your network settings, and we're going to go to page 2. First, we're going to click Bluetooth settings, and we're going to turn the Bluetooth settings on. Now we're going to hit the menu button to go back into the main network menu. We're going to go down to Bluetooth remote control. We're going to turn that on. And now we can actually connect the grip to the camera. Now that we have the Bluetooth remote control turned on, we can connect the grip to the camera. First, we're going to go up to the Bluetooth settings and go to the pairing tab here. Now, one thing to note is if the grip is turned to the lock mode, it will not pair. So we need to make sure that that is turned off. Select the pairing aspect and then hold the photo button and the top rocker. Now that the camera and the grip are connected, you can utilize the photo button or the start, stop, record button, as well as a zoom capability, all from the remote itself. And there you have it. That's a quick start guide to the Sony ZV-1 and the Vlogger Kit. To order yours, go ahead and visit us online at bedfords.com or visit your local store. I'm Luke from Bedford Camera and Video, and we'll catch you next time.